Okay kids, we are going to draft a real quick sleeve pattern that will get set into your bodice sloper that you've been working on. Remember this nice olive green sloper that I have? It was a much larger piece and I cut off the bottom so we could keep it within the window for the film. So I brought that back out because I want to build a set-in sleeve that will go into this armhole of my sloper. So you're going to want your garment, your top. You're going to want a right angle. I use a triangle here. But you can use a sheet of paper that's got the good right angle, anything that will give us a good right angle, and a ruler that's got some length to it. That's a nice long ruler that I can draw long lines with. Your tape measure and a marker to start writing out measurements, and also a sheet of paper. You can use newspaper as long as you can see on it. A nice big sheet of white paper is ideal, but your block paper, a brown paper bag you could open up and use. So those are the materials you're going to want to have. I'm going to start with you doing the measurements first. And I wrote them out here. They're really quick and easy. We're going to do 4 right now, then you can pause the video. And then we'll jump into drafting that sleeve. So the first measurement we're going to get, it's called your sleeve head. And that's the little arch. This is the length from here down to here. And it's good to have a right angle on that. So go ahead and set this up so we're coming across and I can create a right angle down to here. Whoop, there, isn't that lovely? So I can still see that bottom mark right there. That's the bottom of my armhole. And I'm gonna measure, I'm not gonna use this ruler because these inches are much larger. It says 1 inch, but it's much larger than 1 inch. So I'm gonna come straight down from that line. And I'm looking at about 6.5 inches. I'm going 6.5 inches, and that will be my sleeve head, 6.5 inches. Then I want you to go in, pick up your garment, and we're going to measure around this whole entire hole where your arm will come through. So you're going to start at the bottom. I just like starting at that bottom seam, and move your tape all the way around that circle. Use your tape measure because you can manipulate that better. Coming all the way around to that bottom hole, and that's at 17. So my sleeve hole is 17 inches. Then I want you to determine what you want the length of your sleeve to be. Is it a short sleeve? Is it long sleeve? Are you gonna do a big long bell sleeve that drags on the floor? I'm gonna do a short sleeve drafting for this because I want enough room on my paper to keep it in the screen. I wanna point something out though when we draft this. Like if you were picking a shirt out of your closet and that shoulder seam didn't lie right on the shoulder, mine's pretty spot on. So when I say that, here's the shoulder, my arm comes right out like that. Some sleeves may come in. So your neck, your shoulder, and it doesn't line there, it comes over here. This is when you want to account for that because you're going to have to do extra fabric on that arm length to meet a shoulder seam up here as opposed to right on the shoulder where like your t-shirt would land or a garment that's right on the shoulder. Mine's pretty spot on, so I'm gonna just measure from my shoulder on my body and how far down. So you're gonna set your tape measure where your seam lands on your shoulder. Mine's right at the top. and you're gonna measure down the length that you want your sleeve to be. And I think I want mine to be about 10 inches long. So from the shoulder down, my sleeve is gonna be 10 inches. And that'll be a good number that we can divide. The last measurement you're going to take is the widest part of your arm, and that's usually your bicep, your big guns. So you're gonna wrap your tape around your bicep, and you don't want to squeeze really, really tight. You want a bit of ease in there, but you also don't want it to be really loose, because we will account for different designs in our, mine's about 10 inches. Oh, actually, no, that's not true. You don't want to flex. I'm at about 11 inches. So my bicep is going to be 11 inches. Okay, so get those 4 measurements. We will add a little bit of ease. In fact, I'm going to just write that in right now. I'm going to give myself about a 1/2 inch on either edge, just for a little. Mine's going to be kind of a fitted sleeve. It's going to sit nicely on there. So you're going to want to add, I'm going to add about 2 inches. So 2 to 11 is 13 inches for me. So add 2 inches to whatever that bicep measurement was. Okay, do these measurements. And so you may want to pause your video right now, and then we're going to jump into drafting that sleeve pattern for your shirt. All right, let's move on to actually drafting this puppy. You're gonna wanna draw a center line. Great starting point with most pattern drafting. You always wanna have a center line. So I'm gonna do just one big long straight line down the center. The point that you wanna start at, this will be our shoulder, where the sleeve attaches to the shoulder. Make sure that you're giving yourself at least a 1/2 inch up above that point, because we will sketch in our seam allowance. But that's gonna be finished the top of my shoulder. The first measurement I want you to measure down will be that sleeve head, the first measurement that we took. So mine was 6.5 inches. So I'm gonna start at the top of my shoulder, measure down, boop, 6.5 inches, and then the second hash mark that I'm going to make is going to be the length of my sleeve. So I said my sleeve, it's not my full arm length because I'm not doing a long sleeve, I'm just doing a short sleeve from my shoulder down to 10 inches. So my next little hash mark is going to be at 10 inches. All right. So sleeve head, and then my arm length. Go ahead and draw 90-degree angle. So for me, I'm gonna use my corner here. So I line up this side, which means I know that side is 90 degrees. And then I just flip it around and do the same thing over here. So I got a nice perpendicular line there, and same thing for my sleeve head line. Line that up, nice, pretty. They sell really cool drafting paper that's in, there's little dots all over it. It just makes your life a little easier for doing 90-degree perpendicular, horizontal, vertical lines. So you could get that online if you wanted to. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and just label these. So this is the underarm, which is my sleeve head. And then this is my hem, the length of my sleeve. Length. Okay, great, marvelous. Now, we want to determine, so I've got these coming the vertical way. I've got those measurements down. Now we want to figure out where our hash marks are going on the horizontal way. So this underarm, the measurement that we're going to work on with that will be our bicep measurement. And I'm going to want you to drop in both of those numbers. Remember, I added a total of 2 inches to my bicep, that widest part of my arm. But go ahead and mark this one too. So I'm going to have half on this side, half on that side, because I've got a center line. So half of 11 is what? It is 5.5. So I'm going to have 5.5 on one side. And just to make my life easier, I find the fat 5.5 mark on my tape measure, line that up on my center line. Whoop. So 5.5 hashes right there. And my total was 11, and that's right here. Hey, I'm going to show you a trick real quick. If you ever need to half things really quick and you don't want to do the math, if I knew that my finish line was 11, I could take the end of my tape measure, match it up to the 11, boop, 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 and then I have my half mark, which was 5.5. Cool, tricks, yippee. All right, but remember that I added an inch on either side. So go ahead and do that hash mark as well. And that's going to be the finished one that we're going to deal with. So there's my inch there and an inch there, which gives me a total of 13 inches. I do want you to extend that 11-inch down, because that's sometimes a really good marking point for the bottom of your sleeve to come in. I'll show you what I'm talking about. You don't have to do that, because some of you are designing sleeves that flare out. But so then I take my 13 and come down. Boop, because I want my sleeve to be just a little bit fitted past my bicep. Boink. All right. Wunderbar. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do, you're going to take from the top of your sleeve, that shoulder seam, and you're going to match that hash mark to your outside hash mark. And just draw in. I'm doing pencil right now because I'm going to be doing a lot of erasing in a little bit. We just want to have these 2 lines sketched in. I then want you to measure from that hash mark to your upper hash mark. And you're going to divide that number by 3. Because we want to go about 1/3 of the way up. Ah, beautiful. Mine's at about 9. So that's an easy number to divide. 3, 6, 9. So total was 9. I divide that by 3. 1/3 of that is 3 inches. So I'm going to measure up 3 inches here, give myself a hash mark, and I'm going to measure 3 inches up from here and give myself a hash mark. Whoop! All right. These 2 hash marks are really good for us because it shows us where we're going to start the curve of our shoulder seam, because we do what's called a ease stitch through here. And this is the smooth edge that drops in before we begin to ease. It's also where we determine our front and our back and our front. I like to put the back always on the left side, but it's totally up to you. Right now, these are mirror images of each other. Industry standards, so those of you that are working on patterns that you've purchased from Joann Fabrics or online, if you have 2 hash marks, that is a back pattern piece. It's a piece that lives on your back side. So I'm going to call this the back of my sleeve, and this is going to be the front of my sleeve. I'm going to add a second hash mark just so I know when I cut this pattern out, this is the back and this is the front. I've gone up 1/3. All right, now we're going to create that pretty little loop that we set into the hole of our garment that's already built. And a lot of this you're just gonna kind of eyeball, and I know it's like, I don't want to eyeball it, but you're gonna become so used to doing this that you can probably just look at it. And I'll show you how you're gonna double check your measurements, because we took that sleeve hole measurement. So we're gonna make sure that this will set into our sleeve hole. So start with creating, it's gonna go a little bit flat here. You want this nice little flat edge. Your back is going to have a bit of a deeper curve to it, and that's because your shoulders roll. So that sleeve part is gonna have a little bit deeper of a curve. I want you to just come up to, so flat, and then come up to your hash mark there. And then you're gonna just do a little bit of a rounded, don't get all crazy yet, you may wanna start adding later, but a little bit of a rounded edge coming into your cap up here. You're gonna do the same exact thing here, but this guy's gonna be a little bit more shallow. I like to do a little flat space in here, and then arch in. This is more of a shallow arch. And that comes around. Try to give yourself a little bit of a flat edge at the top here. Just makes your life easier as you're doing your little gathering stitch. Your ease stitch. Now, you could eyeball that. That's a little pointy for me. I'll probably come in and correct that, making this a flatter edge. But before I do that, I freehanded that. And what's nice about putting in a sleeve, a set-in sleeve, all of this is gonna have an ease stitch in it. So it's gonna kind of gather up your fabric, and there's a lot of wiggle room for any type of mistakes. If you have a French curve, they've got smaller ones, clear ones. This one I picked up, I think I told you, at a thrift store. You can sort of clean up those edges. I think I want to make this a little shallower. I have a feeling I made mine a little too big. So I just cleaned up that, and I'm gonna use this. See how this would be helpful? I can do a flatter edge up there. I'm gonna ooch that up and do a flatter edge. But again, you can freehand it. So the next step is measure this out. I'm looking at, and you can have it a little bit larger than the 17. Mine was a 17 fitted in there, but keep in mind that we are doing an ease stitch. So if this line from the underarm all the way over the cap and back to the other underarm is a little larger than your 17-inch mark, that's okay. If it's smaller, then you have to create a bigger arch here, okay? Bigger arch. Let's measure it out and see how I did. Oh, I got. Okay, so I'm at 18 inches, which in the grand scheme of things, that's only an additional inch there, and I can gather that in. What I will do, just to clean it up a bit, I'm gonna flatten that out a little bit more, and that will give me more wiggle room for that 18 inches. But that's pretty good. You may have to go back in and just adjust. Maybe this line is a little more shallow, or maybe it's wider out if you need more room. So that's my basic sleeve pattern. Duplicate that, remember that hash mark that's a third of the way up? Get that into your actual pattern line. Get those double hashes into your pattern line, and then cut this guy out. This will now, oh, before you cut it out, totally forgot that. Remember your 1/2 inch seam allowance. So add your 1/2 inch up here. Doot. I'm eyeballing my 1/2 inch if you want to be really, really particular on it. That's okay. There's my 1/2 inch. Doot. I do a little flat mark right there because it helps me set the sleeve in better. Because that point and that point are going to match up, and then I have a nice clean sleeve. All right, so add your 1/2 inch. I got a little bit bigger than a 1/2 inch. Cut that outside line. Extend those hash marks. And that is your sleeve pattern. Okay, cut that out. Get that ready to go. Keep your drafting paper out, because then I'm going to show you how you can manipulate that cap. So, like I know that Maya wanted to have some pleats in hers, so I'm going to show you how we're going to add volume either at the top of it. This seam, this is your underarm. If we wanted to drape out, you would come out this direction, but we'll handle that in the next video. Get to this point.